A lot to get to in the hour ahead. The walls are closing in on the Trump organization. The former president's family business is bracing for criminal charges from the Manhattan DA's office that could come as early as next week. NBC News reporting, quote, court documents show that Cy Vance is probing possibly extensive and protracted criminal conduct at the Trump organization, which could in fact include falsifying business records, insurance fraud, and tax fraud.
It's interesting and not surprising that they would approach the Trump organization to tell them that they're considering to charge them, because that would be almost a death blow to the Trump organization. Every single bank would call their loans if the Trump organization is indicted. There's no way that the Trump organization has enough capital to pay off all their loans.
A death blow. Our expert panel standing by to break down every angle of this case. Plus, the devastating condo collapse near Miami. 4 dead and 159 still unaccounted for as the desperate search races against the clock in a persistent fire below. Coming up, I'm going to be joined by an area resident that has 2 friends still missing. And deal or no deal. After seemingly coming to a bipartisan agreement earlier this week, the president's infrastructure agenda is in jeopardy after angering Republicans.
But if only one comes to me, I'm not. If this is the only thing that comes to me, I'm not signing it. It's in tandem.
We're going to break down what comes next. Plus, the Derek Chauvin sentencing. The former Minneapolis cop who murdered George Floyd gets 22.5 years in prison, but is likely to serve less than that. George Floyd's cousin, Tara Brown, will join me later on the hour to talk about how the family is feeling following the sentencing. We're also going to look ahead to the federal charges Chauvin is now facing. But first, I do, in fact, want to get to those breaking new developments in the Trump Organization probe. The New York Times reporting that the former president's company could be hit with criminal charges by the Manhattan DA's office as early as next week. The case is believed to be focused on gifts and fringe benefits distributed to Trump Organization executives, including its CFO, Alan Weisselberg. The Times citing several sources saying Manhattan DA Cy Vance is investigating whether tens of thousands of dollars in private school tuition for Weisselberg's grandkids, as well as apartment rental fees and car leases, were properly recorded and whether taxes were paid on them. Ronald Fischetti, one of the former president's attorneys, hit back at the latest move in a statement to NBC News, slamming the new charges against the organization as, quote, completely outrageous, and saying he will make an immediate motion to dismiss the case. Back with me once again to break all of this down, NBC News senior investigative producer Anna Schechter. Anna, good to see you once again. So I kind of just want to reset this for everybody, as it is always changing kind of the circumstances surrounding what we know as to when these charges will actually be announced against the Trump Organization. So bring us up to date once more on what we know so far.
So what we know is that there was a meeting of multiple prosecutors and lawyers representing Trump Organization and the former president himself, where the prosecutors indicated that they could be bringing criminal charges. This is a big deal. The Trump Organization has been dealing with civil charges almost since its inception, going back decades. But the symbolism of criminal charges will have major implications. Trump is highly leveraged. In his business, he's got huge mortgages worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. And when those loans come due in the coming years, he will have to refinance those loans. And so criminal charges will affect that process. He was already having trouble because of the January 6th devastating his reputation even further. And now criminal charges, I mean, that's a whole new ball game. So this is a really serious deal. And you have a lot of people, you have a core group of people who pre-COVID were driving in, commuting into Trump Tower, who work there. And I'm sure they are all under a tremendous amount of pressure right now. It's not just Trump, it's his children, and it's a core group of officers, legal team, secretaries, and then, of course, the employees around the world that this could affect.
Was the Trump Organization, was the former president, Alan Weisselberg, so on and so forth, all the folks involved at all caught off guard, or did they see this coming?
I think this team thought that when Alan Weisselberg got immunity from Robert Mueller, passing over those documents would protect him as an individual. And I think It was a tense time during the Mueller probe, and they knew that there were multiple investigations. But I think the idea of criminal charges is a huge blow and is shocking, frankly, for this team. And they are enraged by it. And we'll see there'll be a lot of drama to be watching in the coming days.
I'm sure there will be, as there always is. Anna Schechter, thank you as always. Good to see you once again. Let's talk about this with my panel. Glenn Kirshner, MSNBC legal analyst and former federal prosecutor. David Cay Johnston, author of The Making of Donald Trump and Syracuse Law lecturer. Welcome to you both, guys. Glenn, I'm going to start with you on this one. I want to read for you from the New York Times piece talking about this meeting that Anna just mentioned, right? And they write this: Trump's lawyers met on Thursday with senior prosecutors in the district attorney's office in hopes of persuading them to abandon any plan to charge the company, according to several people familiar with this meeting. Such meetings are routine in white-collar criminal investigations, and it is unclear whether the prosecutors have made a final decision on whether to charge the Trump organization, which has long denied wrongdoing. So I got two questions for you here, Glenn. First and foremost, how do they make that decision? And secondly, how do meetings like this go?
So first of all, Yasmin, they make that decision based solely on the evidence and the law that applies to that evidence. But I will say, when you have these high-level meetings, particularly when it involves a former president, his organization, I'm sure there was a battalion of lawyers there, and you are basically putting them on notice that your organization is likely to be indicted. I would find it shocking if they then backtracked and we didn't see an indictment. There is no guarantee that the organization will be indicted, but this seems to be the last step on the road to an indictment of the Trump organization.
David Cay Johnston, how lethal is this for the Trump organization?
Well, the Trump organization will have enormous difficulty signing any new contracts. So long as Donald meets his servicing of his many loans, I don't think banks are likely to foreclose on him. They're going to look at how much of our money are we going to be able to get back, but he's not going to be able to obtain any new finance whatsoever. And it may affect licenses that he has for various kinds of business, including liquor licenses at his establishments. This is a very painful, troubling development to go after the Trump organization, although not the least bit unexpected.
But I wonder how it is the former president would plan on paying some of these loans back, David Cay, considering how highly leveraged he is from all the financial disclosure documents that we have seen in the reporting on his financial disclosures over the last couple of years.
You know, billions and billions of dollars have flowed through Donald Trump's books, and he's always desperately short for cash and leverage. It's like money flowing down the drain because you left the tap open. And absolutely, he's going to face serious problems. I just don't think his refinance problems will be as soon as there's an indictment. They're likely to come a little further down the road. His immediate problems are more likely to be with any licenses that, particularly liquor licenses in New York. He has one at Trump Tower. He's got liquor licenses at his Westchester golf course, for example. Things like that. Those could be very troublesome for him. But in the long run, I don't know how he's going to refinance these properties that are underwater.